Alrighty. So, welcome to Morning Musings. We are Kathryn and Rachael, and together we are two life coaches who spend a lot of time helping people untangle the messes life tends to throw at us.
Every week, we're going to grab a cup of coffee together, like we do, and we're going to talk about life patterns, habits, coping mechanisms, and downright weird things that humans do that keep us stuck. Um, if you have ever found yourself thinking, why do I keep doing this? Or why does this keep happening to me? This is the right place for you to be today.
Yes, and today, for kind of our third episode, we are talking about the common thing that all of us run into of I don't know what I want. And we're going to kind of open this with if nobody could judge your decision, what would you choose? So I know we run into a lot of people who really they don't know what they want in life or in their
Right.
career or in their relationships. A lot of people have not sat down and really thought that through. They kind of just let life happen to them.
Yes, and I think there's a lot of noise that happens when somebody says, "Well, what do you want?" I think a lot of several things maybe crop up into our minds, and we can't answer all these questions and very quickly. It happens in a matter of seconds. It's not only what I want, but what am I afraid of? What I think I should want, what someone else wants from me, what would make me feel safe, because again, sometimes what we want is doesn't feel very safe. There's some risk involved in it. What would keep me from disappointing people? What would prove something about me? And so the challenge becomes then separating these signals that come into our head when we're trying to figure this really important question out.
Right, right. Yeah. There is usually a lot of fear involved on, well, what if I make the wrong decision? And then there's also a lot of responsibility tied in with it. And that's where I find so often is that people either have not practiced expressing what they want, or they have learned that if they do that, then they must take responsibility for the outcome.
Yes.
And that's really hard whenever it's a lot easier and addictive to just kind of blame somebody else for
Yeah.
why things are going the way they're
Why you're
going.
still in the job that you hate doing that. And look, everybody has limits. I mean, we do have to pay the electric bill. We do have to do these things. But the world is full and actually has been changed by people who also had the electric bill to pay, or in some of their cases candles to buy.
Mhm.
um by people who went ahead and leaned into the empty void to try something new. um I you know I just think that risk is, some people are risk averse, and I'm certainly one of those people. I mean, one of the most important things, and I think I said it last time, I believe very after these years of coaching, I have come to the idea that being uncomfortable, um, or being unwilling to be uncomfortable or in pain and see what it's here to teach us is actually a replacement. The replacement for that is mental illness of many types, not necessarily genetic mental illnesses, but of
Right,
the others that are more nurture versus nature. So,
right,
yeah,
right.
I think that when we hear that, our natural inclination is, why can't I? You're even frustrated. Why can't I figure out what I want? That may be within a relationship. That may be these questions come up in every sense.
hmm Yeah, yeah. And a lot of times the symptoms of this, it doesn't always present itself out openly. You're not usually running around going, well, I don't know what I want. Unless you get backed into a corner and you literally are put into that spot of, I don't know what I want. But most
Right.
of the time, it kind of presents itself as, saying one thing with your mouth and then doing the opposite with your actions, where your words and your actions are not aligned.
Mhm.
That's stating that you don't know what you want. You're not doing what you want, and you're not stating what you want, and you have no idea what you want. But it's obviously not this, what you just said, because your actions indicate otherwise. And
Right.
that's a big one.
I
A
think
lot.
that you mentioned something earlier, and I think it's to the point. What and you use this question, I know, in your coaching. Do I want if nobody gets upset at me? And I think
Yeah.
that's a great. It's surprisingly revealing.
Yeah, yeah. If you were to wake up tomorrow and there was nobody to disappoint, there was nobody going to be mad at you or upset, it was going to be all smiles and everybody was going to be completely okay with what you chose to do, what would you do? And I pose that to people with their career stuff, with their lifestyle choices, with relationships. And it really does clear a lot of the fear side of it out of the way especially if you're a person that's kind of acting in the capacity of I'm afraid to disappoint people, or I'm afraid I'll mess it up, or or people will be mad at me.
Or what if I fail?
Yeah, or what if I fail?
It's already
And
risky, and then what if I fail?
yeah,
And failure is absolutely one of the things I talk about a lot is failure is a part, and in fact, a necessary part of success,
yes,
not the opposite of success. There's no way. When I was in the oil field, one of the things that would happen, when you're out there and you're, as we called in the oil field, turning a tap, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to forget something. And we all did. We forgot. I remember I was draining a water tank one time and I forgot to turn off the drain. And then I spilled the water and the oil all over. And luckily we had a berm, but it was a huge loss. But we would say, if you're out there turning a tap, you're going to make mistakes.
yeah,
That's just a part of it. So I think getting comfortable. And part of that is also when you're starting to identify some of these things, instead of paying attention to the arguments that the brain comes up with, because the brain can come up with many different arguments for everything.
the
Pay
brain's
attention to your
entire fun
body.
yeah, the
Your,
brain's
your,
entire function is to keep us safe and
yes, yeah, that's the
comfortable.
nervous system for you. So the mind can make up almost anything. Your body is less deceptive. In fact, this is how I work with people in developing clearer ideas about where they are emotionally is with their body. So I know that you work a little bit in that area. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things that I kind of work with it with their body is just because the nervous system tends to get just go into overdrive if you're having to make that decision. And whatever is driving it, whether that's fear or wanting to avoid failure or, whatever, um, you know, one of the best things, quite honestly, is to move. Movement gets
Mhm.
you out of your body. Like go for a fast walk.
Mhm.
Do some, if you can, do some squats or some push-ups. If you do a leg day workout, like your brain, you
Like I just
cannot
did
stay up
today.
here. Yes.
That's why I'm still sweating.
Yeah, once you do that, your body literally can't stay up here and overthink it.
Right.
And then you bring your body kind of to that point of exhaustion, and the brain is not as apt to make all of those scenarios happen, and it is more likely to pick A or B. And that's where most of our decisions usually are. It's A or B. And even if we choose not to make a decision, we're making a decision.
Oh yes, yeah,
It's how
and
life works.
I would think, and I haven't looked at the statistics, but I would think there's a giant statistic of people who are in this exact level of decision paralysis, and I've been there.
Yeah.
It's anytime we're making a move towards something that involves risk, and here I'll be honest with you, there is no such thing. Let's talk about relationship. There is no such thing as a relationship if two people aren't taking a giant risk.
Yes.
If one person is staying safe and the other person is taking all the risk, that's not a relationship. I've got news for you.
That is
and
not.
so and so the one person has decided to take the risk and is fielding all of those emotions and those fears, but the other person maybe is just not. They're avoidant. They come and they go. They maybe don't make commitments. They breadcrumb. They do all of those things. And that person is the one struggling with, well, do I do this or do I not? Do I jump in this? Do I get, that's, kind of why marriage exists, because
Right.
and I have my my feelings about marriage, as you know,
Right.
but nevertheless, two people are coming together with skin in the game, and
Yes.
that's why it exists. It
Yeah.
exists because two people have to have skin in the game.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And that's just yes, that's how you handle your relationships is that it's got to be both sides working together and they both sides taking ownership of okay, this is mine. This is my stuff, like my feelings, my personal choices and whatnot. And I'm not going to make you take responsibility for those. I'm gonna do that. And then similarly, I'm not gonna take responsibility for your feelings and your
Yes.
personal choices, your health, all of that. It's not my responsibility to take care of that for you. So you still come in with that level of individuality. And as soon
You
as
have
you
to.
both, yeah, and then as soon as you both realize that, you're able to link up and go, okay, here's my personal stuff, here's your personal stuff, and then here's where we meet in the middle. And then this is how all of our personal stuff can work together.
And admitting and owning what you want. I think
Yes.
that within the bounds of a relationship, there are many times where the main problem is somebody is unwilling to say what they really want. Either there's lots of different reasons for that. Some of it is not wanting to reveal what you really want,
Hmm.
because of fear of rejection, because of fear of failure, because of all of these same thoughts. I
Yeah.
think that when we're faced with a decision and trying to find what we want, I think that we again back to the body. And I'm trying to think of, for me, it was kind of the decision to retire early was a big thing. But I had to pay attention to what was happening in my body. Did my chest tighten up? Did my shoulders, come up around my ears? Do With the idea of continuing to work all the way through 67, all of those things were happening. It was not in me I've just done a lot of work. I started working when I was 15. What I really wanted, though, argued with it was at odds with the conventional wisdom, so to speak, about working all the way to 67 or 68. In my case, that's what it would have been.
Right.
But every time I thought about that, I and when I on the conversely, when I thought about retiring, I was lighter. Even though I faced a huge risk, because again, I'm having to really hustle to make sure I'm making enough money.
Right. Right.
Because let me tell you, Social Security doesn't get it. But I
Yeah.
listened to what was good for my body. I'm so glad I did, because I also had another calling that I needed to answer. And so I took that risk, and there are days when I'm terrified
Yeah.
that I maybe took the wrong risk, but I'm in it now.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad. Most days I'm so glad I am. Some days, when I'm trying to pay a bill,
Yeah.
it's like, oh,
Oh no.
but
Yep.
I think it's a decision I'm so glad I made, but I don't think I would have made it had I not addressed really some of these issues.
Right. And that's where so many people really struggle to sit down and say, okay, what are my values? What do I think is the most important thing
Still splitting.
in this
That
workouts,
workout
man.
was, whew.
So, but sitting down and going, what do I think are the most important things in the world? Like, what are my top two
Mhm.
most important beliefs that everything filters through? And
Mhm.
then and then what do I really want? And so many people do not know that. They either avoid it because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable having to look at, you know,
At
it's
the forbidden truth.
exactly the forbidden truth. And, sometimes it comes from, well, I wasn't raised that way, but this is what I want. But then a lot of times it comes from a just the deeply held belief that I should be this person. This is the mask I put on, but
Mhm.
I'm really this person over here. And whether that was learned from childhood or learned from peer pressure in your teenage years or learned as an adult, just, to try and get your crap together, doesn't really matter. It comes down to it's now your responsibility to take the mask off, set it down, and then get personal with yourself, look at yourself in the mirror and say, what do I actually want? What do I believe is important to me? What do I realistically believe my body can continue to do and handle? And what is good for me? What is good for my family? And um and just having that hard conversation with yourself, walking
Well,
yourself through
and
that.
again, understanding too that some people are dealing with cultural long-term, deeply held, actually unconscious beliefs. Culturally, all of us are raised in a particular culture. So I think sometimes writing down sort of the forbidden truth, what I really want is, and just know you're writing the most forbidden thing that you really want.
Right.
Because I think sometimes we're not only masking for other people, but we're masking for ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, what I'm afraid to, and the next question might be, what I'm afraid to admit is this, whatever that thing is. If I were completely honest, what
Yeah.
would, and then finish that sentence. And then another one might be what I hope happens. What I hope happens. A lot of people want to be discovered,
Yeah.
you know, and they want somebody to come in and say, oh my gosh. And I would think, and I think sometimes that was my goal. I had some kind of early goals. One of them was I wanted to be the president's press secretary, which I'm so glad I didn't get. I would have lasted exactly 10 and a half seconds, but
Before you choke
because I
someone
would,
out.
before they censured me or something or put me in jail. um, but I think it's important to not edit those questions,
Yeah.
um, about what we want, even if it's counter to necessarily what our cultural, the message is sent to us. And as females, absolutely, if we're going to, you know, beat a path out for the people behind us, we're
Yeah.
going to have to show up in that space really knowing what we want.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like women are especially the worst at not knowing what they want. I feel like we're the worst at conforming to what we think others want. And it's it really for us very often starts as teenagers, and we think we need to, whether it's peer pressure or parental pressure or whatever is going on, that's whenever we start learning to, well, what I want needs to be set over here because that's bad for whatever reason.
Yes, I
And
think
then so
there's some
this,
religious implications.
yeah,
Part of answering those questions needs to, I agree, needs to take
yeah.
away some of those pressures.
And then you need to just be okay with not lying to yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I've met a lot of women who believe that if they're going to get a certain type of man to take care of them or something, they have to act a certain type of way. And well, yes, that's true. is that actually you though? And if you don't
Mhm.
like the sort of man that you are attracting, like if you're attracting horrible people, then yeah,
Yeah.
we need to have a conversation about changing some habits and some belief patterns and stuff.
And taking
Um,
care of yourself.
and taking
And
care of
and I don't
yourself.
mean that in a physical sense. But I do mean that in a physical sense. But definitely, if you're attracting the wrong person, and they're not showing up in the way that you're wanting, you finally do have to look at what is it I'm putting out there. I think probably this was the biggest, and it's so complex. I think this was probably the biggest thing in my own life that kept me from really having a loving, close marriage was because I was raised. I think we all know I was raised by a very, my family went through a very abusive time of their children. And then also, not to speak ill of people that I love, but Boyd Van Horn.
Yep.
He never
Yep.
met a woman he didn't like, and so
Right.
I was raised in a lot of just insecurity about who people were and how they were showing up morally and ethically, and so I went into the world even at 12 and 13 saying I would never ever love a man because it seemed to be so painful. And so it took me until I was in my mid 50s to actually admit to myself, I really want a connected, close, loyal, ethical, just cemented, safe relationship with somebody.
Right.
And what a waste of my entire life thinking that I needed to be avoidant and stay away from anything like that.
Right.
I wish I had, written out what my forbidden truth was and not edited and not been noble and
Eh,
not been fair and
right.
actually, not been spiritual.
Yeah.
I think spirituality is good and necessary, and we absolutely must have it. But sometimes when we're asking these questions, or at least be able to divide what it means to be spiritual and be whole spiritually
Mhm.
versus religious
Yes.
dogma.
And
And, I'm a
that's
member of the
where
most dogmatic religion there is.
right. And that's where a lot of the people I talk to who are coming out of a lot of religiosity is what I like to call it. Um, and we have to have that conversation of separating, okay, let's just talk about what you want and then how you feel like that doesn't work in here. And then let's actually do a Bible study on what does the Bible actually say? What is the
Mhm.
character of God? Having that reminder of God and the Bible are not always the same as religion. And
Absolutely, absolutely. And
yeah,
the Bible actually says all things are permitted. Not all things are or not all things benefit you. All things are this is a very big paraphrase. All things are permitted, not all things are beneficial.
beneficial. Yes.
So I think that is that freedom of choice that
Yeah.
is so there. Nobody ever talks about that.
Yeah.
Nobody ever talks about the fact that we do have a freedom of choice. I think
Well,
that
because so often we use religion as the
mhm,
other thing to try and say, oh, well, I don't have a choice.
I
So
can't. I
I
can't.
can't. I
It's
don't know
safe.
what I
I'm
want
going to
because
stay
it's
here.
not right.
Yeah, this is not okay. I can't do this. I can't. Yes.
So, yeah, we use religion to kind of cover up that I don't have to make a choice on this because it was already made for me.
Yeah. And then I can continue. By the way, I can continue to also be resentful and unhappy. I mean, this is where it goes
Yeah.
back to what's really going on within you.
Yeah.
And that should be your guide. And,
Yes.
in whatever spiritual comfort and spiritual relationship you have with God, I think that those are the conversations that need to take place. But
Hmm.
definitely, if you are showing up every day mad as hell because you can't be what you want to be,
Yeah.
and it's because somebody told you you couldn't, but
Hmm.
I mean, you wake up every day wishing you could.
Yeah.
It's time to take a risk.
It's on you, Cupcake. Yep,
Yeah.
it's on you. So
Yes.
yeah, it is absolutely, that's one of the biggest struggles. I know personally for me, I saw that a lot in my family too, where they would say one thing, they'd do the other. And they just constantly had all of this conflict going on in their life. They had so many different jobs, it just relationships. My grandmother, God rest her soul, was married 7 times. She only had 6 husbands.
Oh,
So do the
now,
math.
oh, married one twice, huh?
Exactly. So,
Yes. I
um,
always say that's like a dog eating its vomit, but yeah, you know.
exactly. And it was always very much the same types and everything, and it just work was her way of getting away from everything and not doing the hard work. And I watched that. And then I watched a lot of upheaval in some areas of my parents' marriage too, as a teenager. And they went through a lot of stress. And I remember at one point looking at how they were handling each other and handling things. And I, I went, if that's what marriage is, I don't want any part of it. And thankfully, I came to a place of I got to see somebody else's really good marriage. And I
Yeah.
realized they have a different way of working through things. And
Mhm.
communication is really not a thing in my family. And we need to learn some about this. And so I went on a journey in my 20s of learning how to communicate, learning what these boundary things were, and
Yeah.
learning how to tell green flags from red flags. And I started dating a little bit and getting familiar with, not all men are SOBs. Some of them are really great.
Some know
And
how to show up. I kind of came to that myself.
right, right. And thankfully, that ended up leading me to my husband, who is just the best thing since sliced bread for me. And he had to go on a similar journey for himself, too, where he had to really take a step back and go, what do I believe? Let's get back to the foundation. Why do I believe? Why do I believe it? And what do I want?
Yeah, those are
So,
good questions. You know, it's interesting when I don't know if you saw my mother's obituary, but I wrote my mother's obituary when she was still living, and she and I worked on it together. And I asked her specifically, would you like to see your obituary? I will write it. It was the most difficult writing I think that I've ever done because the person that I'm writing it about is still alive and going to read it. So,
no
and
pressure.
so we worked on that quite a bit. And I had been doing some interviewing of her. What's interesting is if you read my mother's obituary, I asked several really important questions about what she wanted, what she had wanted as a child, what she wanted as a teenager, her dreams, her goals. And do you know, throughout the entire obituary, you will notice if you read it that having children was not in there. It was not the most important thing she felt like she had done was advance in the she's a musician and she played the cello and the piano and in the philharmonic she was a part of a philharmonic, and so those were the really very important things she felt like she had done. And she was talking to me with no filter. I mean, she was 93, she knew she was dying, and we were doing this. She never once apologized for us not cropping up in her obituary as the most important thing that she ever did. It was so freeing it in a way because she just didn't feel the pressure.
Yeah.
She loved us the best that she could. She took care of us the best as she could. But I now it gave me new eyes to see why things had gone the way
Yeah.
they did.
And that's the thing that I feel like people need to understand is that whenever you don't make a decision, um, and then you ultimately, the bigger those decisions become, and the
Mhm.
less you make them, and the more resentful you get at other people not choosing what you really wanted, you
Mhm.
hurt people. You
Yeah.
hurt the next
Yes,
generations.
you do. That resentment and anger and trapped feeling, that all ended up with us.
So it seems
And
like a
we,
really simple, well, I just don't know what I want. It's not that big of a deal, but
yeah,
it
it
does.
has
It is.
profound implications.
It is a
Yes.
big deal.
But we're the
So,
owners. We are called to this. And I do think too that there is this overarching idea about um, comfort. And I, again, I feel like sometimes when we make a decision, we think that now that we're having a hard time in the decision, we think somehow that means that we made the wrong decision. No, it means you're having to fight for it. It
yeah,
means that you're having to struggle. And I think that there is this idea that people who make right decisions don't fight and don't struggle through something, and that
right.
people who make wrong decisions do. The reality is, we're here on earth to struggle. We're here.
Yes.
We came to earth as the being Rachel, and we are required to struggle and figure this thing out. Even
Yeah.
though millions and billions of people before us have figured it out, or, did or did not figure it out, we're still in our own struggle to figure out this life. And so we should wake up. Knowing we are supposed to struggle. Just because you made a decision that you hope
Yeah.
was right, you doesn't
And
mean because you're struggling it was wrong. It just
uh,
means it's making
yeah.
you fight for it.
And avoiding the decision doesn't mean you struggle less. That's
No,
the
it
thing.
doesn't.
Your brain, the more comfortable you make yourself, the more your brain tortures you.
Yes.
Your brain is literally hardwired for struggle. So, that's one of the reasons why the workouts help get
Hmm.
you out,
Yep.
and then making those difficult decisions, having those difficult conversations. It is so much healthier for your brain to go through that. And I've seen people like lessen their anxiety and their panic attacks and so many other things just simply because they're doing that. So
Yeah, and
we're
they're
about out of
externalizing it.
time.
There's
Yeah.
two different kinds of struggle. There is an emotional struggle, and then there's a physical struggle. I think you mentioned something so important when you said we are hardwired for the struggle,
Yeah.
and that can show up. You can look at that on some of these athletes that are super athletes, and they are running marathons, and yet their personal lives are a hot mess. So it can't just be. It's great to externalize these things, and we are healthier if we take care of ourselves,
Hmm.
and it does, that struggle does make you meet yourself, because
Yes.
I definitely meet myself when I'm climbing, when I am hiking a mountain. I
Yeah.
am meeting myself and coming up. So you do have some level of development. But if
Yeah.
we're unwilling to also do that same kind of struggle and work out our emotional
Yes.
issue and go ahead and be in pain, just like we are training for a marathon. Go ahead and be in that pain and let it show us what it's here to do. Just be in it. You don't even have to do anything specific. Just go ahead and say, this is hard. This is painful. I sense that I'm here to learn something. It's like
Yeah.
a holy guest. Let pain be a holy guest and tell it tell you what it's here to teach you.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. The physical aspect of it is just to clear all of the noise out of the way.
Right. Yes.
And one of the things I love to do is to try and bring in some like aromatherapy or some sort of repetitive action. For some people, I've suggested like a spinner ring or
Hmm.
something so that they know whenever they come to that place where they have to make a decision and whether they want to launch into procrastination or blaming somebody else or shrinking away from the discomfort in any way,
Hmm.
that they do that. So whether that's aromatherapy, you put some essential oils on your hands, you smell them, and it triggers that, okay, it's decision making time. Or you sit
Hmm.
down and you make a to-do list. For me, that's kind of my trigger point. If I sit down and I write down a list,
Hmm.
my brain goes, oh, this is
Yep.
what we're doing. We're figuring out what we want.
This was
And
mine from yesterday.
yes, yeah.
And I
So
have check marks by
it
every
doesn't
single one
have
of those
to,
things.
yeah, it doesn't have to just be a grocery list. It can
Right.
be a what the heck do I want list.
Yes. And
So,
And
and
I
it
think
can be
too,
painful.
externalizing some of those fears by working out or by going for a walk or whatever helps because it is helping you, it anchors you in the present moment.
Yes.
And the present moment, if you can ask yourself the question, well, is something terrible happening to me in this moment? Am I relatively safe? Did I have some water to drink? Do I have some? I think that fear plays a big role in keeping us, fear and shame, actually,
Yeah.
keeping us static, keeping us stuck in these beliefs. So
Yeah.
I
It's
think, this,
something that I do with my husband is that whenever we have to make a big decision or we're trying to figure something out, we're stuck in something, we go for a walk together.
mhm,
And even if
yeah.
we're like peeved at each other and stuff, we will hold hands and walk in the same direction because that is tipping our brain into we are aligned and we're going
Hmm.
forward with purpose on the
Hmm.
same goals. And that's ultimately what we want.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
yes. And the only way to do that is to have those difficult conversations about what it is I want, what it is I'm looking for.
yeah,
And once you show up, once you learn how to show up in that space with everybody, look, what I'm wanting is a peaceful weekend. To that end, what I would like is, less visitors.
right,
Maybe we come together and we work out hey, we're gonna go away and just be, alone together. Because I said I can't, maybe I just need some alone time you know, with
right,
my man.
right,
So I
right.
think, but he doesn't know it if I don't tell him, if
Yeah,
I don't cop to what it is I want.
yes,
Um, I can't
yes.
play the game that somehow he should know. That is the most toxic thing ever, ever.
Exactly, exactly. And whenever you are refusing to make those decisions or you're expecting other people to do it for you, it will start showing up in every area of your
Mhm.
life. This is
Yep,
how you will end up destroying your marriage. This is how you
absolutely.
will end up destroying your relationship with your children.
Yes,
And and you can chase after what you think you need to be doing or what you think you want. You could pick, I've even seen people successfully pick one thing and go after that, and that is all they focus on. But then everything else just goes to flames all around them because they refuse to come home and make any other decisions.
yes.
And
Or,
it's
or they feel, and we understand, we know we sound tough here, but we understand that there are some scary realities when you're trying to make a decision about what you want. But I'm taken back to my mother, who I love my mother, and we absolutely did the work of healing before she died. Actually, in the years before she died, we were able to really have some questions answered and answer some questions for each other and love on each other. But during the time when she raised me, I'm taken back to this one memory, and that was she was just really going through a hard time, and she screamed at me one time as a 6-year-old, and she said, I never wanted you. And this is how that happens. She felt trapped. She got pregnant with me way late. My brother and sister are very much older than me. I think I know now that she was planning on leaving my father, who, could be a real difficult character and abusive. And so, and she got pregnant with me, and that door closed in her mind on being able to keep herself safe. And so that resentment was placed on me. And this is what happens. And of course, our mothers, your mother and my mother, did not have access to constant mental health content as we do
right,
now. Nobody was
right.
having these conversations. These women were in a society that really shut the door to any kind of freedom to move towards anything. The
Yeah.
messages were very clear.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they were in a society that was like, if you're having difficulty, here's a pill for it.
Yeah.
And it just numb
Yes.
yourself, have alcohol,
Yes.
have
Have another
cigarettes, and
glass
have
of
a pill.
wine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Yes.
there's still a lot of people kind of stuck in that, but I am grateful that we have moved. as many cons as there are to social media, there's a lot of pros to where people
Yes,
are now seeing these conversations happening and realizing that, it doesn't have to be one size fits all, and it doesn't have to look a very particular way
it
and
doesn't.
stuff.
It can
So,
be whatever you create.
yes. Yeah,
Yes,
exactly. Exactly. And believe me, making decisions or no, you will create something. That is
yes,
the human experience. And that
you're
is
right. Very well said. Very
that
well said.
that is something
Making
that a lot of people
decisions
struggle
is
with.
the human experience, and creating something and leaving. We're not here to eat and poop and breathe air. We're
Yeah,
here to leave something behind and do something. So,
exactly.
yes,
Exactly. So if your life is not turning out the way you want it to, and it's just going to flames, then you should book a call with one of us.
absolutely.
And
Katherine's great at this kind of stuff. I've watched her coach. She and I coach together a little bit every once in a while. And
yeah,
she's a very, very good coach. And she's real specific and she works really well. You work really well with people who are stuck. That seems to be a gift for you. You really have an inroad to that.
I was
Um,
I
I,
was definitely a stuck person at one point, and I had to figure it out pretty much on my own. I had some people in the background that I was getting to know, like you, through my teen years and stuff, who would give me little bits here and there. But now I'm like, if I can help people,
Yes, you
how to
absolutely can. I was more like a ping pong ball. I was like, I was making decisions, but they were all the wrong ones. But I did learn about, about how to find that thing, that I did want, but I made all the wrong decisions. So I
Yeah.
work really well with people in shame.
Yes, yes, right. And
Um,
that's what I was going to say is that Rachel does a fantastic job with people who are in shame, in that shame spiral. They have a lot of guilt over, how they have effed up their past or effed up their kids or, whatever. Whenever you are kind of stuck in that place of shame, you're not going to move forward on anything.
No, it's shame is, I've always talked about the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt says I did wrong. Shame says I am wrong.
Yes.
I'm bad. And it just stops you from, it stops everything in you from moving forward. If you believe you are bad, you can't make a decision for yourself. So I talk with people and teach them how to self-forgiveness, which is a lot of what I do. So.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
thank you for gathering with us today and talking about these complex, deeply troubling um, life habits and the habit we have of not taking good care of ourselves and giving ourselves great compassion and working with ourselves and learning new skills.
Yeah, yeah. And definitely look us up. So I have up on the screen, hopefully. So Rachel's website is mindhikecoach.com, and that's where
Yes,
you can go
thank
look
you.
her up and book a session. And then I am okidokilife.wordpress.com. And so that's where you can find us. That's where you can reach out to us, find our contact information, and talk to us about this. So yeah.
All right, look forward to seeing you next time.
All right.
Get some steps in.
Yes.
We'll see you later.